Is this thing working? Are we live? It looks like we're live. What's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic whatever day you're watching this. If you are new to the channel, welcome to my background noise generator. I'm typically talking about motorcycle stuff on a two-wheel Tuesday, as the name might imply. But you never know. We end up talking about all kinds of other stuff. Hey, listen, it's basically not much more than a background noise generator for folks that are doing stuff that's a lot more important than whatever in the hell I'm talking about. But yeah, thanks for swinging by. Usually do this a couple of times a week. It gives me an opportunity to interact directly with you guys, and it also allows me the opportunity to talk about a topic that maybe I had done a standalone video on, or it'll give me an opportunity to talk about just in more in depth some of the things that I was talking about in one of those standalone videos. So it's fun for me. Hopefully it's fun for you. If nothing else, again, it's just something to have on in the background. Now, all that being said, some pretty cool stuff has happened around the shop. So we've got the full exhaust on the GSX-R 1000, and she is rocking a two-wheel Dynoworks tune. And I got to tell you guys, I don't think I could be much happier with the way that this bike finally turned out. Now, my goodness, did it not take a while to get that exhaust? But a big shout out over to Kyle over at M4, hooking me up with the one-off link, the can. I'm kind of particular about the sound and the look, and the guy always nails it for me. So huge thanks to him. Definitely was well worth the wait. And I got to say that, I didn't really know what to expect with this bike, with that exhaust, but with the two-wheel Dynoworks tune. I was rocking that, the More Mafia tune there for, quite a while on my 2025 GSX-R 1000. And, I thought that tune was pretty good. I can't really complain about it in terms of outright power. The thing seemed to run pretty good, but you don't know until you have some way to compare it against another bike that's been tuned by somebody else with maybe a little bit different mindset coming into that work. And the big difference, and this is what I wanted to talk about, for the lack of a better way of putting it, is the difference between, or I should say the lack of a more polite way to put it, is the difference between a tune that feels like it has been put through the ringer on the street, on the track, on the dyno, in roll racing, whatever. The two-wheel Dynoworks tune just feels generally better than the More Mafia tune, but that doesn't mean that it is better. And so for the purposes of this live show, what I wanted to do specifically was talk a little bit about how do I put this? What the real difference is between the two tunes, and what I was talking about in the video that I recently put up is how it feels different and whether or not that difference is necessarily a good thing. Sam's checking in saying, I see you hiding. What's hiding? There's something behind me. Anyway, how's the feed looking, Sam? Everything looking good? I always got to check on that, because sometimes we get a little bit of a not so hot feed coming through here. So anyway, getting back to it, guys. One of the things that I wanted to talk about specifically, well, let me talk about the tunes as they compared to each other and expand a little bit more upon what I was talking about in that video. So the first reason why you get a tune for anything is for it to run better and to fix some inherent issues that you've got with, well, we're talking about motorcycles in this case, with that bike. And with the GSX-R 1000, it has got a very, very noticeable deceleration fuel cutoff jerk to it. And if you're not familiar with what that means, if you are on hard decel, the throttle is completely closed, and you're braking into a corner or you're trail braking into a corner, as you are rolling into the throttle, you'll feel a bit of a lag, almost like a break in the power delivery, and then it immediately hits back on. And the issue that I had with it was that it was pretty abrupt on that GSXR 1000. So as you can imagine, you're rolling through your favorite corner, you're looking through, kind of tracing your line out of that corner as you're passing through the apex. You go to roll onto the throttle, but there's nothing there. You go to just barely kind of crack the throttle and the bike is still decelling. And that's a weird feeling because you crack it a little bit more, and then that little bit more turns into a little bit more of a jolt, really. And so the main goal with any tune, for me anyway, is to get rid of and to smooth out any kind of throttle imperfections. The next is going to be outright power, but I'm not worried about trying to make the most power you can possibly make. And this is a bit of a vestigial organ for me from when I was working at Pikes Performance, when I had worked as a kid at other shops, tuning, dynoing, and doing everything else. The idea was to try to put together a combination that was optimized, not a combination that was on the ragged edge of fuel quality, sensitivity, and all the other things that can come together that makes those things kind of ruined when you try to take something too far to an edge. That when you start getting past that marginal utility of more is just actually taking away from the recipe as opposed to making it better. A lot of guys like to try to push that envelope. I have found that it's just not worth it. And so I don't think either one of those tunes was really pushing it too far. But I can tell you that between the two, it was the power output itself when compared to the control bike that we were running against, or when myself and my good friend Orange Crush were running the bike, with his bike being the control bike, and as consistent as he is and as consistent as that bike is, we knew what we were looking for in terms of how that performance translated into real world application, or how that tune would translate into real world application based on the dyno numbers, depending on how you want to look at it. And practically indistinguishable in terms of outright power, but the two-wheel Dynoworks tune felt smoother way out on the right-hand side of the tachometer. It also seemed to carry RPM a little bit better. Kind of weird. I don't know why that would be, but it just kind of seemed to a little bit. Oh, Sam's saying that Giuseppe over here is a little bit pixelated on the feed. Oh, but he's having network issues. I got you. Australia on Two Wheel Tuesday. Hello, Tim. So again, getting back into the tunes themselves, the feel of the way the bike just seemed to respond at higher RPM was a little bit better. So I'm gonna let that ride, because again, this is an area where we don't have a dyno, and all we can do is compare the bikes A to B, and it just seemed to run better in these contests of velocity control. So what about everywhere else in the tune? What about rideability? What about all the rest of the stuff that makes a tune a tune? Well, rideability is really good. I am going to give a little bit of props, though, to the More Mafia tune in one area. It's not even props. Okay. So, well, maybe it's actually more of a compliment to the Two Wheel Dynoworks tune. Okay. So translate this the way that you will. On the side of the, it's kind of a fun thing, but it's still a thing. On the side of the tire, say you're going through a real nice, not technical, just a nice long, but still relatively tight based on your speed, left-hand sweeper, and you're in the middle of fourth gear. And just as you start to apex, you start to power on, right? The More Mafia tune wouldn't put power down the way that the Two Wheel Dynoworks tune would. So you could kind of be ham-fisted with the More Mafia tune, and it didn't really make the hit. It didn't really make the power that the Two Wheel Dynoworks tune would at that throttle application. So I would start rolling into the throttle, and that Two Wheel Dynoworks tune is really trying to throw power down. Now that's cool. The only downside to it is it did have a funny little habit of wanting to try to lift the front of the bike up. Now, this is on corner exit, so you're still leaned over, you're rolling into the throttle, you're looking where you want to go, and you get a little bit of a head shake because the front end of the bike is coming up on the side of the tire. And these are at some fairly significant speeds. And so what I learned to do is maybe for some of those corners, either have an upshift into fifth and just carry fifth gear as you're pouring on the coal, and no problems come from that. But I do like the harder engine braking in fourth gear. So again, the idea is coming through the corner, just as you start to pour on the power, try to catch an early upshift and then go to watt for your final quarter entry. That can be a little bit convoluted because you're still a little bit on the side of the bike and you're trying to really reposition as you're coming back up. So what I ended up doing is I just wrote it out, pinned it in fourth, let her eat. She got a little bit light in the front end, and it just is what it is. So the moral of all of that is just know that with that tune on this bike, it's really trying to put power down for corner exit, which I love about the bike. And what I ended up finding is that it was more intuitive though. So again, the more Mafia tune, not quite as aggressive on corner exit. The two-wheel Dynoworks tune, more aggressive on corner exit, but it felt more intuitive because the amount of drive I was getting was more in concert with my brain nervous system to my hand, input versus output type of a result. So those were some of the things that I had to try to ride around. And once I sorted it out, it was all good. And realistically speaking, guys, with the kind of power that this thing is making, I'd be better off going through a lot of these sweepers and just let her rock in fifth gear and not try to leave patches coming out of corner exit, which it will do very nicely, by the way. Sam's checking in saying, got done with a 5-hour trip today. Man, I love my truck with a 3-liter Duramax. Sips fuel. My eco was hand calculated at 36 miles per gallon. Very nice. Never thought I'd live to a half-ton truck at that kind of economy. That's really good. Hearing good things about the 3-liter Duramax. So, as we're talking about these different tunes on a GSXR 1000, I'm kind of reminded of the fact that, it's weird that, nowadays, and it's been like this for a number of years, and it just always kind of, it catches me off guard when I think about just how much power these things make and how easy they are to ride. And I got to tell you, now that I've got the R model sorted out with the full M4 and the two-wheel Dynoworks tune, I then had to attack the suspension settings for that bike. And my GSXR 1000 is an R model, and the R model is distinctly different than the standard, which is called an A model, in terms of its actual suspension. The stiffness of the front suspension, the rear suspension, the spring rates in the front are similar, but the valving is so different in the forks. The rear it's a different shock altogether with a different spring rate. So a lot of what I learned with the A model, I'll just go ahead and tell you guys, if you're wondering if there is a difference, there is a huge difference between the two bikes in the way that they respond with, well, the way that they ride. First of all, the R model is a lot more compliant. It's a way more comfortable bike to ride on the street. Full stop. The standard model, you're going to have to soften that thing up a ton to get it to get it to not beat you to death if you're riding any, 45 minutes to an hour in any one direction, going over overpasses and roads that aren't exactly just glass perfect. It's going to beat you up. And I've got a pretty high tolerance for stuff like that. And guys, I'm not kidding. It would jar enough to where I felt like I And I'm not kidding. At one point, it felt like I had sparred for about 2 rounds, just with how it would just bounce you around so much. So the R model, though, nothing like that at all. In fact, the R model, initially, I had to stiffen it up in the rear. It was just way too soft, both for compression and primarily rebound dampening, which was kind of ironic when I got to thinking about it, because the standard model was just so rough. Like, I was taking as much rebound dampening almost as I could out of that bike. With the R model, I've thrown in as much rebound dampening as I could. It's kind of strange. So yeah, in that respect, way, way, way off. But I've got it sorted out. And now that I've had a lot of time to get that bike sorted out, I can't even put into words how happy I am with the bike, with the way that it handles. And I have made it softer up front. I'm down to like just shy of 7 full turns in from full soft on the forks. Oh, fun fact, by the way, rider sag with the forks all the way loose, and then because there's a like maybe a turn or so of free play with the adjuster. So just as the free play hits any kind of tension at all, if you stop them there, the front fork sag with me on the bike at about 205 pounds is 38 millimeters. And I can see if somebody was 175 or 165 pounder, those springs would be considered very stiff. So I get it. But it just kind of side quest on that for you. But at just shy of 7 full turns in, I want to say that the sag is sitting at like 33 and a half or 34 up front, and out back it's sitting right at 32. It's almost 32 and a half, because if I just kind of twitch, it'll go from 31 to 32. And if I just move the tiniest of an amount forward or aft on the seat, I'll go from 31 to 32. So it's a little bit different there too. But I'll tell you this, with that setup now, I was able to, after we got back from the ride, I made some adjustments to the bike, took it back out, and it is so much more compliant and so much better on the side of the tire through a couple of corners that I know are rough. It just a lot of waves, very uneven surface, not like jaggedy, just not flat. It's, how else do you describe it? Undulations. It's almost like a drinking game. Anytime I'm talking about like doing a riding review or something like that, and expansion joints and undulations. See, what kind of who says the word undulation, right? It just comes out. I don't know. So anyway, undulations. Anyway, it does really well with that, and I've been able to get it on the side of the tire and aggressively hit those types of corners, and it is so much better now. And where I was going with that is that it is very similar to my 636. And because it's so similar to the 636, which is a big compliment for that bike. For any time I would say that something is similar to my 636 in terms of handling or comfort or anything like that, that is a big, big compliment, because as much as I was having some buyer's remorse with the 636 when I first got it, now that I've got it dialed in, it's one of my favorite motorcycles that I've ever ridden. So, that bike in my GSX-R 1000, dude, I don't know. I mean, GXR 1000, I get it, but it's just, you can hop on either one and have a ball. And I never really feel like I don't know. I'm a lot more playful when I'm on the 636 than when I'm on the 1000. I'm a bit more, how do I put this? Like the mentality between the two bikes. Playful on the 636, kind of an asshole. Not, how do I put that? I'm just more aggressive with the GSX-R 1000. Sam saying he's looking at a lowered Honda Shadow. Love the look, but honestly, the bike isn't doable at the moment. I can understand that. Speaking of bikes that might not be doable in the moment, having a lot of second thoughts about the 2026 GSX-R 1000 now that the X-Star bike is complete. That thing is really good. And I've got to say that I haven't I haven't really got the itch for anything new. There's no bike that's out there right now that I'm just all lathered up for and can't wait to, throw a leg over. We've had an opportunity. Well, I say that there's some bikes in inventory right now that I do want to take and get out on the road and bring you guys as far as a ride review. But you guys will see those coming up in an upcoming video. What I'm talking about is like just bikes in general, like new bikes, something coming down the pike that I'm just absolutely beside myself with wanting to ride. So aside from the R9, I would love to get my leg over an R9, mainly to shut up myself a little bit. I've got this big crush on the 636, and I've had the GSXR 750. The XSR 900 is a bike that I practically fell in love with. I would like to sample out that engine in a sport chassis with a proper suspension, good brakes, and just see what the hype is all about with that bike. So as far as bikes that I would be looking forward to, it would be that. A bike that I would just love to ride would be the Testa Strada V2 Panigale. I still have an incredibly soft spot in my heart for that bike. And I gotta say, man, if it were ever to become a thing, if I were to ever get another bike, it would have to be something like that, maybe, to get me excited enough to get another bike, because just from the expense of all of these things, you start to look at some of these bikes, and I would love the opportunity to ride a lot of these things, but the opportunity to purchase, you almost wonder what you would do with it, right? But anyway, with that being said, if I can find one, I want to try to get a leg over on one of those so I can compare it to not only the GSXR 1000, but to other motorcycles that I've ridden as well. Sam saying he got some seat time on a Livewire. Yeah, a lot of the guys that have ridden those don't have any complaints about them. But the only thing you can complain about a Livewire is it just does not have the range, which is a shame. So the Livewire for me, any of the electric motorcycles, like proper motorcycle with 17-inch wheels and real motorcycle tires, and I think you know what I'm saying when I'm saying all of that, like not an e-bike. E-bikes almost get a pass with me, but it's the electric motorcycles that it's an answer to a question that I'm not sure anybody asked. And with Energencia going out of business, and it just, I don't know, it kind of bummed me out with that, or whatever it was. You know which one I'm talking about, the really nice one. And so that bike going away kind of bummed me out for the e-motorcycle crowd. It's not that I think that it's a bad idea. It's just that there is no infrastructure for that thing that I can see, with an exception. Like if that thing could use I don't even know, maybe it could, a regular car charger, and you got an honest to God, and this would be asking way too much, but if you got an honest to God 150-mile range out of the thing, which would drop to like 60 miles pretty quickly once you get off into the twisties, maybe then it would be, I don't know. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on those bikes because, it's a whole bunch of ifs and stuff like that just don't ever really come true. DM is in. What is up? Got the ball guy with the flex and the specs. Saying, good evening, chat friends. I've missed a few. Glad to be here. Glad to have you, man. We are talking about the two-wheel Dyno Works tune versus the More Mafia tune, and how they're similar and how they're different. And in one of the key note differences was in the throttle mapping, because outright power, they're extremely similar. I would give the nod to the two-wheel Dyno Works tune in terms of outright horsepower and how it carries RPM on the full right-hand side of the tack. It just didn't seem to fall off the way that the More Mafia tune kind of did. Also, it was smoother up there. It wasn't as buzzy. But the main thing is in the throttle mapping and how that bike felt on the side of the tire coming through along fourth gear sweeper as you're powering through the apex. And again, this is what like chef's choice. Which do you prefer? The more Mafia tune, the throttle mapping, I couldn't put the power down in the same way as the Two-Wheel Dynoworks tune, because the Two-Wheel Dynoworks throttle mapping felt more aggressive in that scenario. Now keep in mind, it's a GSX-R 1000, M4 full exhaust, and tune. I mean, this is a very powerful contraption here. And so on the side of the tire in fourth gear, you start really pouring the coal to it as you're coming through your apex, and it would start to get light because it's trying to lift the front tire off the ground. And so, I found myself, you just kind of keep looking where you're going. Anytime you start to get light, you start to go wide. And it's just like, okay, roll off the throttle, reset the line, and then at corner exit, just pin it. And then it would literally just kind of step up, come back down, or it would just kind of float and then come back down and everything is good. And in that case, you're pinned anyway. And you guys have seen my videos. I'm never like this. I'm usually just kind of, palm back on the throttle. So, it's just kind of funny that there is such a major difference between the two tunes. And in this case, it kind of depends on what you like. The more Mafia tune maybe was a little bit more linear with the throttle mapping, but to get the drive, I would have to be really into the throttle. Not necessarily an issue on a left-hander, but when you're over on the right, it can be a little bit weird when you're really trying to pour the throttle to it, and your wrist you got more wrist in it. I prefer the Two-Wheel Dynoworks tune. I just need to not be greedy with the gear, and just instead of fourth, maybe run it all in fifth, and know that I've got a lot of power on reserve, where when it's time for me to start coming through a corner, I can just think and just, dumb fist it, go watt, and just let her eat. But I do like leaving rubber coming out of corners, and it will do it very nicely with that Two-Wheel Dynoworks tune. Sam saying a lot of motorcycles are like the Can-Am Spider and T-Rex. In my eyes, there's a place, I just don't understand it, man. Folks like them, so I mean, there's something to them. I've never, do you say driven or ridden? I've never piloted one of those, so I don't really have anything to say. DM saying, so the 1000 is more 636-ish. Very much so more. I tell you what, here's the crazy thing about the 1000 now, that it's got the right tune, it's got the right exhaust on it. Okay, check this out. You'll understand what I'm talking about, DM, when I say this. I don't even think about what I'm doing with the 1000 anymore on corner entry, on setup, on drop in, or anything. It is literally just an extension of where my eyeballs are looking to go. The bike will drop in and do it. But the big difference is that mid corner, it doesn't have that weird, like, there's two corners that I'll check this on, and they're both right-handers. The one of them you probably won't ever see me hit. There's a second one though, which is carousel, which is when I'm coming out of the marina. It's that first right-hander that I hit, and it's nothing but just a guardrail going all the way across on both sides. So you're kind of held in just like you are on a carousel. Hence the name. And that corner, this is also the reason why I do this. I keep forgetting to bring this kind of stuff up. That's why I like doing the live show. That corner is important because for several reasons. First of which, there is no ability to trail brake to apex and then power through that corner. The way that that corner is shaped and how long that corner is it drops back around. You can't go wide and drop in apex. It's too narrow and it's too long. So you have to hit maintenance throttle on that corner. And so when you come into it, you'll see me coming in hot. You'll see me ding, ding. I'll bring the front end up. Wee. Okay, we sit it back down, come in hot, and then you'll hear me trail brake, and I drop it into carousel. Right as you drop into Carousel, it is very wavy. That concrete is just kind of doing this all the way around until you get to the Missouri turnaround. And when you get to Missouri on that turnaround, just as you're pulling out, that's when it gets flat again. But if you ever watch some of the videos, I mean, it's bumping its ass off. Now you hit that thing and it'll just kind of settle in and it rips right through that Carousel turn. That is a big deal because I literally don't even have to think about my speed going through that anymore. I just hit it at whatever I want to hit it at, as long as it's comfortable and I'm not going wide. I'm in pretty good shape. And if you ever notice, if you go back and look at the mile an hour, there was a video that I did. I cannot post this one. I've posted some not really sketchy stuff, but I posted some stuff that I've had to. There is no way I could. There's no editing that I could have done. This would have taken forever. The blurring. So, but anyway, if you were to have seen that one, my quarter speed on that is about 2 miles an hour, even 3 miles an hour faster, almost 10% faster now with the suspension working as it should. There's another turn though, and it goes back to the one that you probably won't see me hit because it's literally, I'll get out, leave, and it's right there, and then it's right back over here. There's no real, I'm not setting anything up. I'm literally only using it as a screwdriver or a wrench. It's just a tool to test suspension. And that turn is also the same way. It got a lot of waves to it. And man, I absolutely, it's so good because it is so much like the 636. Because the 636, I just ride it. I'm just out there hitting it. And the 1000 does everything now that the 636 did. And a lot of it, almost all of it had to do with dialing back the front suspension and dialing up the rebound dampening on that R model. Now that all that seems to be sorted out, the bike feels so much better. And I don't have to think about riding it. I don't have to think about, okay, what if it does? Because what would end up happening is I would be on the side of the tire and the bike would just kind of move around and I'm looking where I need to be. But every time it would move, it would set me out wider. So it's, the more lean you have, the more risk you have. And so I don't really want to be dragging knee, but I'm already, my bank angle is enough to where if I just laid my leg over, I'd be dragging puck at this point. And I'm going, screw it. And I'm just kind of rolling off the throttle because I just could not get the suspension dialed in for whatever reason. And now that I've put enough time in it, I figured out that, oh yeah, just make it like the 636 and it'll be fine. And I did, and it does. So yay, I've got a really fast middleweight again. DMC, telepathic. That's when you know it's right. The main thing, yeah, it's just there's no extra. Like I'm concentrating on corner exit, and I'm not concentrating on making adjustments mid corner to keep my line where I want it to be. Now I just have to make sure that I'm cognizant of the fact that I can't. Especially in fourth gear, when we do the Miller S, that's a little bit easier. For one, it's on true concrete, and two, I'm in third gear. I'm dropping it in. I've got a lot of engine braking, and I can basically trail brake through apex and then run that thing up in third gear. And I don't, because my RPM is a little bit not really lower. I don't know. I don't have the same issues in third gear with that bike that I do in fourth, but a lot of that has to do with the velocities that I'm hitting because, if you go back and look at what the Miller S looks like in terms of mid corner speed, and then look at some of these others that you won't necessarily see, there's a lot more mile an hour involved with that too. Same thing. Honestly, I personally don't feel safe sharing the road anymore. I really prefer the off-road stuff. I can understand that completely. No speed limits on private land, indeed. And DM saying that's what got me to the track. God, that's what I quit riding on the street. I didn't quit riding on the street, but in a way I kind of did. I mean, I would go up into the mountains every once in a while just to kick it and have fun. But see, the thing is I got to a point with my 06 GSX-R 750 where I just didn't really respect the thing anymore. And that's when you get a bike to that level, you don't need to be on the street. you can be on the street. It's just that you're going to be carrying track level velocities and mentalities into an area where you've got folks that don't, that do just walking around people, right? And you know, sometimes those mix great, sometimes they don't. And I try to keep it somewhat civilized when I'm out, but you know, we're all human, and I do some very human things when I'm on a motorcycle. I'll just leave it at that. Oh, Sam's liking the off-road life, and yep, same. Yeah, he's liking the side by side. Yeah, I mean, all that is cool, you know, but you got to have the land or access to the land to do it. And unfortunately, I ain't got it. But I got me some roads, baby, and we get them good. but yeah, no, that what the hell was that? Freaking meteorite or something? Anyway, but no, the GSX-R 1000 I don't know how to be happier with it. As good as it runs, you know, I just don't think that I have anything realistic that I could say negative about it. Again, throttle mapping is always a subjective thing. And it's the feel, it's how the tune actually feels, and so is suspension. And now that I've had, I mean, you'd think I'd have gotten it done by now, right? But I've had a lot of time to mess with it, a lot of miles to play with it. You know, I've already put 1,000 miles on that bike. Can you believe it? On my GSX-R 1000, I've literally just crested, it might be like 1,200 miles now that I've put on that bike. So I don't know. So it took me about 1,000 miles to get that thing sorted out. But it's been a lot of fun. And I got to tell you, it's the bike that I wanted. It's the bike that, I mean, I cannot believe I had the opportunity to get that bike. So, you know, big shout out to Hunter, Tommy, and the rest of the gang over at Stub Cycle. And again, I am trying to get my leg over some bikes to bring to you guys for riding reviews. I've got an S1000, BMW S1000. I'm going to try to bring to you guys. The Royal Enfield. There's one of the 650 Royal Enfields. I don't know which one it is. It's got a bag on it, little satchel bag. Neat looking bike. Anyway, I want to ride it just because I like Royal Enfields, and you know, it may not be the most popular bike in the world, but I like the sound of it. I like the look of it. I like vintage looking stuff anyway. So there's that. I may be bringing to you guys a CBR 1000 HRC edition. We'll see about that. That one, it's just a hell of a pretty bike. And I have a thing for CBR 1000s. So I do want to try to get a leg over on that one. And then that MT-09 is still up there with the tune and the exhaust. So that would be a good one to ride, to step in as at least some kind of an analog for an R9. And that's another thing. Speaking of the R9, I know I mentioned it earlier, you know, 636 V R9, you know, which do you choose wisely? I got to say this, man, you know, I rode the XSR 900, which is, again, stock for stock, going to be as close as you're going to get to the R9. And if you watch that video, I am properly having a good time with that bike. I did not think it was going to be as fun as it was. Very lively, very responsive. A lot of that had to do with the fact that it's so light. The thing doesn't weigh anything. Yeah, I think that bike weighs less than my 636. But anyway, I just had such a good time with that bike. And I figure, you know, if the R9 is anywhere near that, which of course it is, the same engine, same weight, little difference in gearing, but who cares about that, right? I mean, it's going to be really good. But after riding the XSR, I can tell you this, I haven't ridden the R9, but there's a place for that kind of bike. And I get it. I am a product of the times that I was born into, and I love me some, 600 class super sport bike. But damn, man, the just initial big torque hit that you get out of the MT-09 engine is something, it's remarkable. It's something you have to talk about. You have to bring it up. But that is its calling card. It's its entire personality profile is in that very snappy, very playful, torquey engine response. And that engine is known for that with the Tracer 9, the MT-09, the XSR 900. It's really good at being what it is. And the more I rode that bike, the more I thought, damn, you know, a lot of other manufacturers could learn from this. Now, I'm not saying I would necessarily have put that engine into a super sport bike, at least not in the state of tune that it's in, mainly because it runs up on its rev limiter pretty quickly. And I don't know how the body control module, so to speak, is programmed on that bike, but I can tell you that the XSR was hitting some nannies pretty hard. But so was the R1, and I don't think any of them hit as hard as the CBR 1000. So, I mean, there's that we can talk about. But I guess getting to the point, you know, as good as that bike is, I can kind of see why so many people gravitate towards that type of a riding experience. It's kind of interesting because you get to have all the sport without doing anything really all that sporty. Yes, get a little bit different. I'll explain you what I mean just by saying that it accelerates hard, but it accelerates hard to speeds that are sane. And for a lot of guys, that's cool. Where a 636 or a CBR 600, R6, these types of bikes, they accelerate very strongly because they got very aggressive gearing, but they're like a little banshee out to, you know, 130, 140 miles an hour indicated, whereas these other bikes accelerate very strongly with a lot of authority, but they make you think you're going faster than you really are out to, say, maybe 115 or 125 miles an hour, if that makes any kind of sense. So anyway, oh, and speaking of which, yeah, cannot get the 636 tuned and piped fast enough. I'm hoping to have that exhaust in within the next 3 weeks or so. We'll see. But we'll be doing the exhaust here. And so because of that, it'll be kind of cool. Get some extra content on that bike. You can see kind of the ins and outs. I know there's been plenty of how-to videos on that, but I haven't done one, so I'm going to do one on that bike and just have a little bit of fun with it. Should be a neat process with that bike. Let's see. Oh, Sam saying I'll miss it when it's gone. Yeah. Yeah, man, I tell you what, I would love to have access to land again. I used to, and I'm a little bit kind of tweaked that I don't anymore. But yeah, looking forward to bringing you guys more on the 636. And I'm debating on, so part of the video, the live show, I should say, is working through different videos that I've got ideas for that I don't really know if they're going to work out. Sometimes I'll get started on videos that, man, they just don't hit the mark. And what I was going to try to do, and this is why I'm really talking about the throttle response and the two different tunes and all that in this live show, is because what I wanted to do is I was going to do a ride along video. Like I'm talking about, like right now is where the, you know, and have the bike on the side of the tire and doing stuff like that with it. And I don't know that that would really translate. I may still try to do it and put it out there just so that y'all can hear me talking and you can maybe get my reaction to the bike being on the side of the tire with the smoother throttle input and maybe working through some of that. But it just, I don't know. I was trying to put that one together and it just didn't really ever grow any legs. So anyway, there's that. There's that video that I was trying to put together, and I figured I'll just do this in the live show because I can talk a little bit more about it. And if anybody had any questions between the two tunes or, you know, the two bikes or whatever, I could at least talk about that. DM saying a lot of new content and subscribers. Yes. Saying nice. It's the biggest little channel anywhere and my favorite. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's kind of the chicken ranch of motorcycle channels, I guess. I tell you what, I I have a lot of fun with it, and what you get with me is just a genuine reaction, if nothing else. And hey, at least I'm not an AI bot, so I mean, I am a people. But the thing is that I have a genuine love for this stuff. I have no. It's rare when I meet a motorcycle that I just don't like. There's been a couple since I've been doing riding reviews. There's been one that I was like on a wholesale level disappointed with. But there's been a couple of bikes that I just wouldn't necessarily buy for myself. And but outside of that, I mean, I wasn't having a bad time while I was riding them. And there are, again, I mean, my taste is so varied. I don't really have. Yeah, I'm a sport bike guy at heart. That isn't going to change, but I just have so much fun with all these different bikes that I get an opportunity to ride that I just want to share with everybody. So, uh, anyway, I'm blessed to be able to do it, and I am always so grateful. So, again, huge shout out to Hunter Tommy and the rest of the family over at Stubbs Cycles for allowing me to bring those motorcycles to you. But with that, guys, I do got to scram. I got to get back to work, but always good to see you guys. Keep an eye out for those ride review videos. I'm going to try to get a couple in this weekend. Fingers crossed. You never know. But weather permitting, we kind of got gaffed a little bit on weather there for a hot minute. So I'm trying to play catch up with some riding reviews. We'll see if we can't make up some ground with that. But listen, guys, get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they need it way more than you know. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Y'all take it easy.